Great. So kicking it off, let's go. Quick agenda. We'll start with some intros. Betty will take us through the ICE response preparedness. We'll jump into a quick discussion about it, and then we'll share some exciting margin updates, and then share some exclusive webinar offers for attendees, and then a quick Q&A session, and that should do it for us. So I'll start. So hi, everyone. My name is Zach. I lead marketing here at MRGN. We're joined today by Betty from Red Truck Consulting. So Betty, introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself and your company, and then what you'll be talking us through today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Zach. My name is Betty Marcon. I've been trying to figure out how to change my name I usually do it in Zoom, but I don't know how to do it in Google Meet. I am located in Connecticut. I originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. I owned a couple of restaurants in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in the restaurant industry my whole career. And currently what I do is I work with restaurants to create better culture, to make their workspaces better places to work. I'm very, restaurant owner centered on really getting them to see their vision for what their restaurant could be, how to create better human resource processes, and so forth. I work with restaurants all across the country and have had lots of experience in lots of different roles. So that's who I am.
Great. Thanks for the intro, Betty. Or I can call you Red Truck until you change your name on Google.
Betty would be good.
Betty's preferred.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll hand it over to Chris, our head of product.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris. I'm in charge of the product area here on our margin, and very excited to share with you a little bit everything that we will be displaying here today, and also maybe a brief tour of the platform and how we can add value to all of your day-to-day operations.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And then last and certainly not least, our fearless leader, Yoni.
Thanks, Zach. Hi, guys. My name is Yoni. I am the CEO of MRGN, which we started a couple of years ago, primarily because I myself, and I think most of the team, comes from the restaurant space, and we got tired both from the operator and the consumer side of things, costing us an enormous amount, logistically, making for a lot of headaches in our lives. And we believe we can fix this business model. So thank you, Zach. Appreciate everybody.
Great. A couple other members from the MRGN team on here as well. So thanks everyone internally and externally for joining. I'm happy to have everyone here. Any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to throw them in the chat or just jot them down, and we'll get to anything at the end of the next section, and then at the end of the webinar. So plenty of time for any questions. So starting just with a little quote to kick us off: preparedness protects people and builds trust. Do it both safely, legally, and confidently. So now I'm going to hand it over to Betty, and I'll still drive the slides here, Betty. So just let me know when to move on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for putting this together, Betty. We're really excited to dive into this. Very relevant to the restaurant industry, and we've heard a lot about it and gotten a lot of demand for this. So very excited to have you share.
Wonderful. You can stay on the main slide, on that other one before you, because I want to kind of put us into the mindset of why preparedness really matters specifically for restaurant owners. When challenges arise like ICE inspections and compliance checks, what matters most is being prepared. And preparedness protects your employees, your brand, your peace of mind. Right now, across the country, in urban areas and rural areas, the climate for immigrants has become really frightening. And in fact, it isn't just immigrants. It's people who have the right to be here. It's people who are documented, but unfortunately fit the profile of immigrants. Brown skin, generally. People are being dragged off the street, and it's frightening to watch, actually. The restaurant industry is a unique place in that we employ a great many immigrants. And many of our customers are also immigrants as well. So to keep our businesses as places where people feel safe, where they want to work and where they want to dine, we have to plan for what's happening in our communities. And so this presentation is really about how to plan for those things. So yeah, you can go to the next slide now. Yeah, in this slide are 6 steps for being prepared for any visit from ICE. The American Business Immigration Coalition has suggested these steps to prepare your business and staff. So the first one is about retaining an immigration attorney. You may be in an area where you're not really hiring a lot of immigrants, or you may be in an area where you are. But being prepared with an immigration attorney, or at least having access to somebody who knows immigration law, is really important. You want to sit down and create a written ICE response plan. And that might look like sitting down with your general manager and your chef to create a written response. And the more people, I believe, the more people that are involved in the creation of this plan, the better off you are, because then more people feel invested in it and feel that they have to, something to refer to every time they're faced with the situation. So it's a good idea to get more people involved in the plan than just make the plan by yourself. And then it's important to train the manager's employees on their rights and share with them the points in this presentation. I-9s, these are the forms that every employee needs to fill out before coming to work for you. It verifies their right to work in the US. And I don't know if you've ever had experience filling out an I-9, but they're a bit complicated. You never know what to fill in, numbers to fill in, dates and so forth. I don't know if you realize that you have to have an I-9 filled out within 3 days of somebody beginning employment with you. I didn't know that until I went through a training on how to fill out an I-9. And if the I-9 is not filled out properly, this can create real problems. You will be fined for an inaccurate or poorly filled out I-9. So doing an I-9 audit, or that's another thing, you want to keep those I-9s in compliance as best you can. And ICE agents cannot go into private areas without a warrant. So the restaurant public areas are fair game. So make sure to have a space where ICE cannot go without a warrant, and post a sign in the entrance to that space. Hi, Yoni, you have a question.
Yeah, touching on the first point that you made, I'm, as an operations person, kind of putting a policy in place and training everybody on it is usually my go-to. I'm wondering, what are the resources that you would need, or someone within a restaurant would need, in order to create a policy like that, given that traditionally, I'm guessing the people within the restaurants are not experts in immigration law, right? Where are they drawing from the resources that they need in order to make that policy and train the team, like the response policy?
Yeah, so the American Business Immigration Coalition has tremendous resources on how to create that plan and what that plan might look like. I think that one of the great things is to actually understand what it is that ICE is looking for and what the legal limits are to what they can and cannot do. For example, they can't just walk in and start going into your kitchen and start taking people. They need to have a judicial warrant with a name of a specific person on that warrant to be able to go in. So that's the kind of thing you need to know in order to create the plan, right? Because then you need to say to your staff member who's in charge, hey, look for a judicial warrant, look for a specific name. If they don't have it, send them away. Make sure that people know not to speak. The less you say, the better off you are, that kind of thing. So there are step-by-step plans that are available through the American Business Immigration Coalition and other organizations. I have a list of resources that I'd be happy to share. I'm planning to share with you all at the end of this presentation to talk about, that highlights those specific resources to get that plan in place.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, finally, create a contact list of attorneys, advocacy groups, and other rapid response networks available for staff. Post in the employee area and somewhere where employees have access to it. And now this is clearly, if someone's working in your restaurant, but you might want to have a flyer that people can take with them in case anyone in their family is detained and needs some advocacy for that as well. So we can go to the next slide. So how do we handle these ICE encounters, and what happens when ICE enters your business? First of all, as with any interaction, stay calm and professional. Make sure your staff, who's the point person, has a calm nature and can handle this with maturity. I think that's really important. You may have a bunch of folks in your organization that really don't feel like they can handle this without getting out of control. So it's really important that you have someone that you have designated as your point person. ICE must present a valid judicial warrant to go into private spaces. So have your staff person ask to see a judicial warrant. The warrant may have the name of a specific employee, as I mentioned. You do not have to comply. That person can be in the kitchen, can be out of sight in a private area. You do not have to comply with the judicial warrant if that person is in the building. Often ICE will go into the private space looking for a specific individual and make collateral arrests of people. So you don't want them going in there looking for that specific individual. I just keep thinking about the trust issue here, and we're in the hospitality business. So we provide meals and comfort for our customers, and they rely on us to provide them a safe place to work, a safe place to eat. And we really want to protect that as much as possible. So protecting customer privacy and making sure that we don't identify specific customers that we know of who may be undocumented. Yeah, Harry.
Hi, sorry, could you just clarify one point? So you had mentioned like if they are then, going and looking for an employee, there's an ability to make collateral arrests. So I guess confirming, like, if they have a judicial warrant, are they still authorized to make other arrests, or I guess could you just clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, they have a judicial warrant for a specific person. They are not. They would make people have had collateral arrests happen. So if you, for example, let's say they are looking for a specific employee, you lead them into the private space, and they don't see that employee. They actually can go and make arrests in that space. That's legal for them.
Okay.
So they are making collateral arrests.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So to avoid that, Betty, is there a recommendation that you have in terms of, like, if that person is there, you bring them out of the private space, or
Yes, if you actually want to comply with the warrant, and you would need to go in and bring them out of the private space and bring them into the public space. Yes.
And then these might be questions for a lawyer, right? But are you violating anything if you don't bring them out, if they do have a warrant? Like, what are you required to do if they are in a public space and show you the warrant? Do you know that?
Yeah, I don't know that for sure. I mean, you have, if the person is working in the public space and they show a warrant, yeah, then you kind of have to give them that person, right? But if the person walks into the private space, that person is protected by the private space.
Got it. So
Right.
Making sure people know about these spaces to be in
Right.
case of this incident.
I'm kind of operating with an interesting assumption that we all don't want our employees to be carted off to detention. So I just want to put that out there. You know, my idea is that we protect our folks. And the fact is that so many of the people who work for us, they are documented, right? We do have documented employees, and most of us have up-to-date nines, and we know that these people are authorized to work in the US, but they still will be carted off. They still could be carted off. So we want to make sure that we keep everyone as safe as possible, right? The last thing I want to say is we want to make sure that the encounter is clearly documented. Make sure you have badge numbers, agent action, you know, you have everything written down. You may get a couple of people together in the, you know, in your staff who've witnessed this so that they can actually write down how the action went down. So that's what I have here. What's the next slide?
Really quickly, before we jump to the next slide, I have one more question.
Yeah.
In terms of recording with your phone, I've seen a lot of those. Is that something that recommended? Like, I know could potentially escalate certain situations. Is there any, I'm assuming it's legal to record in a public space, but do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I would definitely record. I think recording is a really great tool. And I think it's really important because then you actually, you know, you could say you may have a policy in your restaurant about posting. That might be a problem. So you might say to your employees, look, you can take a video, but I don't want to see this on on social media. Take a video for our own purposes, but please, you know, try to keep the restaurant out of the public eye, out of, you know, as a safe space. You know, you don't want people to see that someone's been accosted in your restaurant. You want to make sure that people feel safe to come in. So just from a public relations standpoint, I would say, you know, make sure that if they videotape it, it doesn't end up on social media. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a few resources, Zach, here. I guess we should put them in the chat. Yeah. We'll put them in.
Yes. If I can put attachments in the chat, and if not, I can definitely send it out to all the attendees after this.
Yeah. Do you want me to do it, or I can put it in. Let's see. I'll put it in as we're going through the presentation. I think we want to keep going with the presentation from Margin.
Yep, great.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak to any of these resources before we?
Yeah. So just as I mentioned, the American Business Immigration Coalition. This is kind of a bipartisan coalition of folks in the agriculture, hospitality spaces that are working to assure work permits for undocumented folks to be able to work legally in the United States. They have lots of actions on Capitol Hill. They're trying to advocate and create a better pathway for citizenship and documented employees and to be able to work that way. I also want to say I am offering a I-9 audit to anyone who is on this call who would like an I-9 audit for 15 employees or less. I'll do it for free as part of, you know, an opportunity to kind of make sure that your documentation is correct. Yeah, and that's what I have to say. That's it.
Amazing. Harry.
I have another question. So I think this is not necessarily, you know, my situation, but I think a lot of the times we are considering like the American citizen perspective and the American citizen business owner perspective. Is there anything that maybe changes how you would approach if a business owner is not an American citizen, or you know, maybe is a green card holder themselves? And I'm just curious if that changes kind of any of the recommendations any.
No, it doesn't change my recommendations. I think it's crucial to make sure that you're carrying your documents with you. I don't think anything can protect you more if you're an immigrant restaurant owner someone who's legally here in this country. Yeah, there's nothing separate, I would say, in that sense, particularly.
Got it.
Except that you're more likely to want to, have an immigration attorney on hand, I think. I don't know. For example, my husband is a documented, immigrant, and he has a green card. But I think, we have an immigration attorney who we always, touch base with when we have these questions. So should always have one, I think.
I have a couple of immigration attorneys, solid ones that I can recommend if anybody needs them.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you, Yoni.
Great. So we are, as we transition here from the ICE section to the margin update section, I wanted to speak to kind of the overall theme here, right? Where managing a restaurant group, many locations, there's a lot of relationships that you're managing. So Betty was speaking to the relationships with your customers and with your employees. Margin is a platform that, in addition to helping restaurants understand their finances, understand their margins, understand all the numbers and all of the noise that's happening on a day-to-day basis, it's a relationship manager as well. It's managing the relationships with your staff. It's managing relationships with your customers, relationship with your menu and with your numbers. And so all these. So very excited. We've been working very, very hard on some updates to the Margin platform. Yoni gave the intro about Margin at the beginning for those of you that are familiar, that are not familiar, but wanted to hand it over to Chris to share some exciting updates to the platform. And then we'll have Yoni speak to some case studies that we've seen.
I'll run through it all.
Yoni will run through it all, even better. So going to hand it over to Yoni. Did you want to share? Did you want to have one of us drive? Okay, fantastic. So I'll stop sharing now.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Zach. So to preface, guys, I want to make sure that everybody's aware this is not meant to be a promotional kind of piece for Margin. We are a very, very early stage startup. We are just launching in the coming days. And what we've come up with here is, like I mentioned earlier, around how us as operators and consumers, we've gotten really, really fed up with the situation just overall. We went out basically speaking to as many restaurateurs as we possibly could. And they would tell us consistently that their top pain point was lack of transparency into costs and revenue, not really understanding their menu construction and how it impacts their cost of goods and so on. The second major pain point was everything to do around labor, staffing, scheduling, regulatory compliance, and everything we've been talking about thus far. And then other issues around things like supply and distribution, which I don't think anybody's going to be too shocked to find out that there are still restaurateurs submitting orders through fax. And competitive intelligence. A lot of restaurateurs came to us and said, hey, we're tired of going website by website, PDF by PDF, just to understand what everybody in the area is doing with their menus. If we serve an avocado toast and 7 other restaurants in the area serve avocado toast, we'd love to know the ebbs and flows of their pricing. What are the trends around that pricing for the last 6 months so that we can keep up and we can obviously establish ourselves also as a dominant restaurant in the area. So everything to do with those pain points. And then we said to ourselves, all right, how do we solve this problem? Because what we were already building was a business strategy kind of planning platform. And so what Margin is it's a platform that it connects to all of your existing systems within the restaurant. It pulls all of the data, the crazy amounts of disparate data that you have through Toast and 7 Shifts and Restaurant 365 and so on, correlates all of that data and makes sense of it. All right, so in essence, we're becoming the brain of the restaurant. And then our kind of secret sauce, you're going to see in a minute, is where we bring in real live economic information or even just market information in general. So I'll show you guys in a second how that works. But basically, think about it as, if you're familiar with the business intelligence space, this is a business intelligence platform that hands you insights on a silver platter, actually actionable insights, but pertaining strictly to your restaurant within the context of the economy. So I'm logging into an existing account right now. I've already onboarded, I've already set it up. And by setting it up, I mean I've connected my accounting system and my point of sale system. So I land here on our homepage, and immediately you can see that we can manage, the platform can actually manage multiple locations. So this is a list of locations for a particular restaurant group here in New York City. And soon enough, we're going to have the ability for all of these locations to roll up into kind of regional groups, as well as corporate headquarters. So let's just say you're a restaurant group or a restaurant. Yeah, let's call it a restaurant group with multiple brands, and each brand has multiple locations. We're going to support all of that in the coming weeks. So diving into it, you'll notice on the left-hand side, what we're touching on here is the pain points that I just mentioned. So restaurateurs came and said, we have problems understanding our costs, our revenue, labor, everything surrounding labor. I'll show you a little bit around that. So it's not just scheduling, attrition, right? We want servers and restaurant staff to treat their jobs as careers and not just as ordinary jobs. And we believe that is going to encourage the thriving of the restaurant landscape. And we understand the economics of that are not possible today. And so we're here to fix that. Competitive intelligence, as I mentioned, and then suppliers and distribution. And then we're going to be adding more and more as time goes on, just tackling every one of the little minute problems within the restaurant. So if I click on costs right now, you'll understand the power of this platform. So right now, what you're seeing is a very, very simplistic newsfeed. All right, it's a newsfeed of a couple of insights. I run an Italian restaurant, let's say, and I get an insight that says, Margin is recommending that we increase the price of our chicken Parmesan from $21.50 to $22.25. Why? Because of, let's say, supply chain issues related to the Russia-Ukraine war. So if I back out of this, you can see right here, just gives us the straightforward, simple insight. What should I do? Now, if I want to dive into it, I want to better understand it, then I open up I double click into the insight. What I'm getting here is some performance metrics, which are always really useful, but most importantly is the actual factors that went into this insight. What are the ingredients doing in terms of the supply chain? What are the economic factors that, kind of impacted this insight? How did we find out about this Russia-Ukraine war and its impact on marinara sauce and the chicken Parmesan? Everything can be seen here very, very transparently. And now, instead of looking at cost of goods in terms of dishes, we're looking at cost of goods in terms of ingredients, which is the real unit economic of the restaurant. So this is very strong. Next up, we've got labor. So sales is not launched yet. That'll come in the next few weeks, but labor is already live. And right now, as I mentioned, attrition being a big problem within the restaurant, regulatory compliance. What if a law comes down all of a sudden, whether it's local, national, federal, whatever it might be, and you're probably going to find out about it months later. You're going to scramble around, an inspector's going to come over, right, audit the place, and you're not going to be ready. And that's probably pretty typical. So we want to get ahead of all of those things. We're going to be digging into HRIS platforms, your payroll platforms as well, and so on. So I'll show you really quickly. As a GM of a restaurant, we know it takes about 3 to 4 hours a week to build our schedule. Even in the cloud, we're building our schedule in the cloud. All it does is really store it there. It doesn't actually build it based on anything. So what I'm doing here is I'm uploading some reports from my Toast account. I click continue. And now I get the actual kind of the output of those files. Those were my time entry and sales history files from Toast. I see my team here. And what this allows me to do is enter the nuanced aspects of a schedule. So for example, Johnny doesn't like to work with Jimmy. And Janie likes to work mornings and Johnny likes to work evenings. So I could type all of that in here, hit next. And now it's going to show me a breakdown of my head count. What does the system now believe I should have staffed up on every shift throughout the next week? Now, what it's done here is it's already looked at my sales volume history and my time entry history. It figured out all of my shifts, the duration of the shifts, and how many people I'd normally have in each role on each shift. And then it enriched it even more. And now we're algorithmically looking at your schedule and saying, hey, this is how it should be built. And then the next few weeks, we're going to be inserting here weather effects on your schedule as well as local events. So for example, if you're across the street from a stadium and a concert's going to come out in a few days from that stadium, you want to be able to staff up in advance without having to look at Ticketmaster every couple days. And then what if there's a rainstorm coming at the same time, right? So the platform is responsible for weighing those data points against each other in order to generate your actual schedule, which you can see right here. So that's what we're working with. Eventually, you're going to be able to push this back into your scheduling system, 7 shifts, whatever it is, but we're pulling the data from your scheduling system, smartening it up, and pushing it back into that system. Next up, we've got competitors. So across competitive intelligence, we want to understand hey, if we're a sushi place, like I mentioned, we want to know what everybody's selling their salmon skin roll for. But we also want to know, hey, why is that sushi place down the street getting so much more foot traffic than our sushi place? Maybe it has to do with branding and the colors and the logos. Maybe it has to do in their strategy around advertising. And so we're going to be aggregating all of this data and telling you exactly what you need to do in order to market your restaurant better and position yourself better amongst competitors. And lastly, around suppliers and distribution, if you're using, let's say, a system like Stock 68 or Buyer's Edge, and good news, we're going to be integrating deeply with Buyer's Edge in the coming weeks. We're going to be able to pull your orders, your historical orders. We have your inventory already through your PMix and your point of sale system. We're going to be able to basically predict what you need to order, and we're going to submit those orders automatically. You'll have the opportunity to approve them, of course, before they go to the distributor. But the idea there is you should no longer be taking manual inventory and then manually inputting everything into the computer when it's already in your POS platform, and then manually sending that order over to a distributor. And so we want to digitize that entire process. Along with that, we're also going to be reducing costs across supply and distribution. So let's say let's go back to the sushi example. There's 5 different sushi places in the zip code, in our zip code, and we're all ordering the exact same sushi rice from, let's say, 5 different distributors. Why don't we group those orders into one, get all of the restaurants a discounted price on their sushi rice now, and give one distributor the reassured revenue over the next several months? Much more efficient for everybody and cheaper, obviously. So that's what we're working on across supply and distribution. We've got our all-encompassing chatbot, which I'd be curious to hear some opinions on. Our integrations, of which a lot more are coming, and that's pretty much everything. And we're very collaborative in the way that we built the platform, so you can invite your team, you can invite your owners, your GMs, your shift managers, your servers, whoever it is you want. Eventually, with the scheduling feature, everybody on the team is going to have the opportunity to send in their PTO requests and do everything that they do currently, let's say within 7 shifts, and that will be pushed to margin in order to just enrich and make it a lot smarter. And that is it. Thank you very much, guys. Zach, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Yoni. Let me put this back up.
You take it for a sec, Zach, and then I want to touch on studies, exactly, and then design partnership.
Yeah. Did you want to speak to the case studies?
Yeah,
Yoni?
I'd love to. I'm just going to keep this super, super short. So we've done 3 case studies on this technology, and all 3 of them consistently came back showing an increase of $2,000 in increased revenue per month, per location, per restaurant location. So approximately $20,000 in increased annual revenue for a restaurant location. And that's when only analyzing the menu costs. We have not yet done any case studies around sales, scheduling, supply and distribution, competitive intelligence, any of the additional features. And so as those come out, what we intend on doing is basically plugging all of these holes in the proverbial restaurant business model, or the leaky business model. That's how we look at it. So we plugged hole number 1 around the menu costs, menu construction, removing things from your menu, adding them back in, whether it's items, entire dishes, meals. If you serve only breakfast and lunch, there might be a case to serve dinner as well. Or if you serve all 3, there might be a case to stop serving one of them. And Margin is capable of telling you all of that. So that's the one feature these case studies were done surrounding, and we were able to surface $20,000 in increased revenue, which was fantastic. So we're doing a pretty good job of proving ourselves. So Zach, I'll pause there on the case studies. If there are any questions, of course, I'm happy to field them, and then I'll touch on design partnerships.
Amazing.
Any questions regarding the demo? Any questions regarding the case studies? Anything, guys? And if not, that's all right too. Awesome.
Great. Yeah, we'll have some time at the end too if anyone thinks of any. So, we got Betty.
Yeah,
Yes.
Betty.
Yeah, no, I'm curious, Yoni. That it sounds amazing to be able to increase the revenue so much in by just using the menu. I'm curious how many units that one particular case study was. Was it 1 unit, or how many restaurants did they have?
Yeah,
And
great question.
Were they in urban, or were they somewhat rural, really, like maybe in a suburban area? Can you tell me?
Totally. I'll give you 2 really, really easy examples. So there was a Fair Restaurant Group based in Chicago. They have 7 locations throughout the country going national. We did the case study on one single location. And not only that, we only did the case study on 3 items on their menu. Based on 3 items on their menu, we surfaced about $1,700 in increased monthly revenue per location. Then there was an empanada shop, a single, almost hole-in-the-wall empanada shop in the DC, Virginia area. Not a group, single location. They're doing about $400,000 a year in revenue, and they surfaced about $2,000 through their experience on the platform. So additional $2,000 in revenue. That was a decrease in their, or an increase in their margin, I should say, of 0.5%, which was huge. We all know restaurant space is working with somewhere between 3 and 15%, maybe 18% in like really high-end fine dining. 0.5% is a big needle moving jump. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. Does that answer your question, Betty?
Awesome. That's really great. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Zach, should I keep going?
I mean, I'll jump into the fun part here. Webinar exclusive offers. Betty had touched on this before, but Betty, if you want to speak a little bit to your offer and the benefits of the audit or anything here, I'll hand it over to you for one last time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. So what this audit is looking over your I-9s. We would do it remotely, securely through a share file. And I take a look at these and give you a heads up on the ones that need to be fixed and where they need to be fixed. Something else I didn't mention in my presentation is that we have something called E-Verify. And I just want restaurant owners to know that E-Verify is not required of any business, any private business that's less than, well, in some states, it's not required at all for private businesses. In some states, it's required for businesses of a certain size. And then it's required of businesses that do business with the federal government. So I do also have a list of what those states are. And I think it's important to look at those because E-Verify is, you know, if you run an employee through an employee social security number through E-Verify and it doesn't compute, you will run into problems. So I just want to bring that up as well. Great.
I'll take it from there and I'll just dive right in because I'm going to dovetail on what Betty's talking about, which is the value in this is huge. We did a E-Verify for ourselves, and it's a really quick and simple thing. So don't overlook that, and you can do it even if you don't meet the criteria that the state requires. It's a checkbox type of thing. And it's very simple to sign up for. So just search, Google E-Verify, do that in 2 seconds and you're good to go. I think every once in a while you have to like log in order to kind of just ensure that your account stays active. But besides that, there's nothing to do and it costs nothing. That was number one. And number two, I, as a COO career-wise, done a lot of, when we onboard new employees, I-9 is a big piece of it. And the I-9, like Betty had mentioned earlier, we've all filled out I-9s. We all know how annoying it, right? We have to fill out our dependents and our tax exemptions and all that kind of stuff. And nobody really understands what's going on there. So I would take up Betty entirely on that. And I wouldn't imagine it would take all too long given restaurant staff sizes are not all that huge. And going through a handful of I-9s would be, and especially by an expert like Betty, would be fantastic. With that, I'll close out by saying that thank you, Zach, for this. Thank you for putting it together. Around the second piece of the slide that we're looking at right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're not looking to promote margin. We're looking to promote, let's say, awareness of margin, but we're not trying to sell anybody on anything. And therefore, attending this webinar would fast track you into what we call a design partnership. A design partnership is where you would hop on board with the platform and we would give you a very deep discount along with very high touch point, white glove service and support for a long time, all for just maybe 30 minutes of feedback every few weeks. So we're technology guys. Granted, we've all worked, operated, and owned restaurants at various points in our lives, but when we're in our bubble, it's very hard to think outside. And we want to talk to restaurateurs who are experiencing this every single day. And they can look at it. Harry, you, for example, you could look at something and say, hey, I don't like this blue button. I prefer it green because it resonates a little differently. Or the mathematics behind this insight make absolutely no sense to me, and here's why. And then you, Yoni, you have to go fix it in margin. All sorts of things like that. You might even come in and say, hey, you know what? Supply and distribution is a much bigger problem than competitive intelligence. Maybe we should prioritize that. And so we want to show you design, we want to test features with you, and your insights are just completely priceless and invaluable to us. So if anybody is interested in having that discussion, and it's a quick one, just let us know after the call. And thank you very much. Back to you, Zach.
Great. Well, that will wrap us up. If anyone has any last questions, we can answer them. Also, like I just sent in the chat, I'll be sending the resources, the email contacts for me and Betty, Yoni, anyone in the email as well after this call. So just keep an eye on your inboxes. And then, of course, any questions that don't come to mind right now or come to mind after this, please feel free to shoot any of us or all of us an email. We'd love to be a resource for anyone here or anyone outside of this call as well.
Yeah, happy to refer immigration attorneys, policy templates, all sorts of things like that. And Betty is happy to do the I-9 audit. So thank you guys. Appreciate it, Zach.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for coming, and I'll talk to everyone soon.
Bye, everybody.